Standing outside my childhood home on New Year's Eve, I clutched the envelope that would shatter everything I believed about my family. Inside were bank statements showing my inheritance money. My grandmother, left specifically for me, had been systematically stolen for 3 years. My own mother had been the mastermind convincing everyone I was too unstable to handle money while she funded my golden child sister's luxury lifestyle. The family gathering I was banned from was being paid for with my stolen funds. As I watched through the window, seeing them toast with champagne bought with my inheritance, I realized this wasn't just theft, it was the ultimate betrayal. Before we dive into how I exposed this family conspiracy and got my revenge, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Have you ever discovered a family secret that changed everything? Hit that like button if you are ready for a story about justice, betrayal, and the sweetest revenge. Subscribe because this family drama has more twists than you could imagine. And trust me, you will want to see how karma finally caught up with them all. My name is Serafina, and until that New Year's Eve, I thought I was the problem child in my family. For months, my mother had been telling everyone I was having episodes and needed to be kept away from family events. She painted me as unstable, unreliable, and frankly, an embarrassment. My sister Melody, the family favorite, would send me photos from gatherings with captions like, "Wish you could be here, but you know how mom feels about your outbursts." The truth started unraveling when I received a call from Grandma Rose's lawyer, Mr. Patterson. He seemed confused when he mentioned my inheritance withdrawals. "Miss Serafina, I hope the monthly distributions have been helpful during your difficult time," he said. I nearly dropped the phone. What monthly distributions? Grandma Rose had passed away 3 years ago, and I was told she left me nothing because I was irresponsible with money. That afternoon, I marched into the bank with my identification and demanded to see my account statements. The banker, Mrs. Williams, looked nervous as she pulled up my records. What I discovered made my blood run cold. Grandma Rose had left me $50,000 in a trust fund designed to pay out monthly installments of $1,500. For 3 years, someone had been claiming those payments. The signatures on the withdrawal slips were clearly forged my mother's handwriting, trying to mimic mine. But there was more. She had also been intercepting the lawyer's correspondence, having mail forwarded to a post office box she controlled. Every monthly payment, every legal notice, every attempt the lawyer made to contact me had been stolen. I spent the next week gathering evidence. Bank security footage showed my mother making withdrawals, sometimes accompanied by Melody. Credit card statements I requested showed expensive purchases, designer handbags, spa trips, a down payment on Melody's new car. My mother had even used my inheritance money to pay for family vacations I was mysteriously never invited to. The most devastating discovery came when I found email exchanges between my mother and other family members. She had been systematically destroying my reputation for years, telling them I was addicted to gambling, that I had stolen from previous employers, that I was mentally unstable and potentially dangerous. Every excuse for why I could not attend family events, every reason why I was not trustworthy was built on lies she had crafted to cover her theft. My Aunt Linda had written back expressing concern. "Are you sure about Serafina? She seemed fine when I saw her last year." My mother's response was chilling. "She is very good at manipulation. Trust me, it is better for everyone if we maintain distance. The money is much safer being handled properly." The betrayal cut deeper than the theft. This was not just about money. My mother had systematically isolated me from my entire family, destroyed my relationships, and painted me as a pariah to cover her crimes. My cousins avoided me at the grocery store. My aunts stopped calling. My own father would barely look at me during the rare occasions we crossed paths, clearly believing every lie she had told. But the final straw came when I discovered the New Year's Eve party planning emails. My mother had been organizing this lavish celebration, complete with catered food, premium liquor, and expensive decorations. The budget breakdown she shared with the family showed exactly how much she was spending, and it was almost exactly the amount she had stolen from my inheritance. When I called to ask if I could attend, her response was swift and cruel. "Serafina, you know how uncomfortable you make everyone. We have been planning this for months, and honestly, your presence would just create drama. Maybe it is time you focused on getting your life together instead of trying to insert yourself into family events where you are not wanted." As I sat in my small apartment that evening, staring at the evidence spread across my kitchen table, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt and confusion I had carried for years crystallized into pure determination. They had stolen my money, my reputation, and my family relationships. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated me. I was not the unstable, irresponsible person they had painted me as. I was about to become their worst nightmare. The next morning, I called Mr. Patterson and requested an immediate meeting. His office was exactly what you would expect from an estate lawyer: dark wood, leather chairs, and walls lined with legal books. When I walked in carrying my folder of evidence, his expression shifted from polite professionalism to genuine alarm. "Miss Serafina, I have been trying to reach you for months about some irregularities in your account," he began, but I cut him off. "I know exactly what the irregularities are," I said, spreading the bank statements across his desk. "My mother has been stealing my inheritance for 3 years." Mr. Patterson's face went pale as he examined the evidence. The forged signatures, the intercepted mail, the fraudulent claims, it was all there in black and white. This is criminal fraud," he whispered. "And mail fraud. The penalties for this are severe." But I was not interested in just criminal charges. I wanted justice that would hit them where it hurt most: their reputation and their relationships. Mr. Patterson helped me craft a comprehensive legal strategy. First, we would freeze all remaining assets in the trust. Second, we would demand immediate repayment of all stolen funds with interest. Third, we would file both criminal and civil complaints. The beauty of the plan was in its timing. I knew my family was planning to announce Melody's engagement at the New Year's Eve party. Her fiancé, David, came from a prominent local family who valued reputation above everything else. What better time to expose the truth than when they were all gathered together celebrating with stolen money? But I needed allies, and I knew exactly where to find them. My cousin Marcus had always been the black sheep of the family, constantly criticized by my mother for his unconventional career choices. If anyone would believe my story, it would be him. I called Marcus and asked to meet for coffee. His reaction when I showed him the evidence was everything I hoped for. "I knew something was wrong," he said, shaking his head in disgust. "Your mom has been acting weird lately, and the way she talks about you never made sense. You are literally the most responsible person I know." Marcus revealed something that made my blood boil even more. "She tried to get me to invest in some business venture last month," he said. "Claimed she had come into some money and wanted to help family members get ahead. I turned her down, but I bet she was using your inheritance for that too." Together, we began reaching out to other family members who had always seemed uncomfortable with how I was being treated. My cousin Sarah, who had always been kind to me, admitted she never believed the stories about my supposed instability. "But your mom was so convincing," she said. "And she always had these specific examples of things you had supposedly done." We discovered that my mother had been telling different lies to different people, carefully crafting her deception to match each person's concerns. To the older relatives, I was irresponsible with money. To the younger ones, I was jealous and manipulative. To those with children, I was potentially dangerous and unstable. But her lies were about to catch up with her. Sarah agreed to help by attending the New Year's Eve party and recording everything on her phone. Marcus would handle social media documentation. We planned every detail carefully, who would confront whom, when the evidence would be revealed, and how to ensure maximum exposure with minimum escape routes. The legal papers were prepared and ready for service. Mr. Patterson had coordinated with the police to have officers standing by. We had even contacted a local news reporter who specialized in financial fraud cases, as my mother's theft had crossed federal lines due to the mail fraud component. 3 days before this party, I received an unexpected call from my father. His voice was shaky, uncertain. "Serafina, your mother says you have been causing problems with some lawyer. She wants you to stop whatever you are doing and move on with your life." This was my opening. "Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Have you seen any of the money from Grandma Rose's trust? The inheritance she left specifically for me." There was a long silence. "What inheritance? Your grandmother did not leave you anything. She was worried about your spending habits." "Dad, I have bank statements showing $50,000 in my name with monthly withdrawals of $1,500 for 3 years. Someone has been stealing from me, and I think you know who." Another silence, longer this time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Your mother handles all the finances. She told me that money was from her savings account. Said she was helping the family during tough times." The pieces clicked into place for him just as they had for me. "Oh my God," he breathed. "Serafina, I had no idea. She showed me bank statements, but they must have been falsified. She said you were in trouble and that helping the family was the responsible thing to do." My father had been manipulated just like everyone else, but he was also complicit in his willingness to believe the worst about me, without ever asking for my side of the story. Still, his realization was crucial for what came next. "Dad, there is going to be a reckoning," I told him. "You can be part of the solution, or you can go down with her. But this ends on New Year's Eve." The die was cast. In 2 days, the truth would finally come to light. The response from my father was immediate and devastating for my mother. Within hours of our phone call, he was at my apartment with boxes of documents and an expression of horrified realization. "She has been playing me for years," he said, his hands shaking as he set down the evidence. "I found these hidden in her closet." The documents were a gold mine, falsified bank statements. She had shown him copies of forged withdrawal slips, and most damning of all, a handwritten journal where she had been tracking her lies. Each family member had their own page detailing what stories she had told them about me and when. It was a masterclass in manipulation, and it was about to be her undoing. My father's transformation was remarkable. The man who had barely spoken to me for 3 years was now furious on my behalf. "I believed her when she said you were stealing from us," he admitted, tears in his eyes. "She showed me credit card statements with charges she claimed you had made. They were all falsified." But the most shocking revelation came when he showed me a life insurance policy he had taken out on me 3 years ago, right after Grandma Rose died. My mother had convinced him it was necessary because of my risky lifestyle and mental instability. The beneficiary was listed as my parents with a payout of $200,000. She kept bringing up stories of young people dying from drug overdoses. My father explained. Said we needed to be prepared for the worst. I thought I was being responsible. The insurance policy changed everything. This was not just theft, it was a long-term plan that potentially included hoping for my death. The journal entries supported this theory with notes about my supposed downward spiral and references to when this all becomes too much for her. My growing alliance was becoming a force to be reckoned with. Marcus had recruited 2 more cousins. Sarah had convinced her husband to help with video documentation, and now my father was fully committed to exposing the truth. But we needed more leverage for the New Year's Eve confrontation. That leverage came from an unexpected source. David, Melody's fiancé, reached out to me directly. Serafina, I know we have never really talked, but something Melody said last week has been bothering me. She mentioned you were not invited to family events because you had been stealing money. But then she showed me this expensive necklace your mother bought her, and when I asked how they could afford it, she got really defensive. David was a forensic accountant, and his professional instincts had been triggered by inconsistencies in the family's financial stories. When I showed him the evidence, his reaction was swift and decisive. This is major fraud, and if Melody has been knowingly spending stolen money, she could be charged as an accessory. The revelation that David was willing to help, even knowing it might implicate his fiancée, was huge. He agreed to attend the party and use his professional expertise to ask pointed questions about financial irregularities when the time was right. But our alliance building hit an unexpected snag when Sarah called me in tears. Serafina, I think your mother suspects something. She cornered me at the grocery store and started asking weird questions about whether you had been contacting family members. She seemed paranoid. We had to accelerate our timeline. If my mother was getting suspicious, she might try to cover her tracks, or worse, convince the family to uninvite the allies we had recruited. We decided to move the confrontation to earlier in the evening, right after dinner, but before the engagement announcement. The final piece of our strategy fell into place when Mr. Patterson called with excellent news. The FBI is interested in this case, he reported. Mail fraud across state lines is a federal offense, and they want to coordinate with local police for the arrest. They are willing to wait until after your family confrontation, but they will be standing by. We spent New Year's Eve day doing final preparations. Marcus and Sarah coordinated their recording equipment. David prepared financial questions that would expose the inconsistencies in real time. My father practiced his confrontation speech, still struggling with guilt over his role in my isolation. But the most powerful moment came when we did a final evidence review. Spread across my kitchen table were bank statements, forged documents, email printouts, and my mother's handwritten journal of lies. The paper trail was overwhelming and undeniable. She is going to try to turn this back on you, Marcus warned. She will claim you are having another episode, that you are delusional, that you forged the evidence yourself. Let her try, I replied. We have witnesses, professional documentation, and federal investigators backing us up. Plus, she does not know that Dad is on our side now. As evening approached, we all felt the weight of what was about to happen. This was not just about getting my money back. It was about destroying the web of lies that had poisoned my family relationships for years. Some people might never recover from the truth, but the alternative was letting the lies continue forever. My phone buzzed with a text from Melody. Excited to share big news tonight. Wish you could be here to celebrate with the family who actually cares about each other. I smiled as I typed back, "Don't worry, I will be there. And I guarantee everyone will remember this New Year's Eve for the rest of their lives." The stage was set. In 3 hours, the truth would finally come to light. The New Year's Eve party was in full swing when we arrived. I had coordinated with my allies to enter separately. Marcus and Sarah were already inside. David was mingling with his future in-laws, and my father was playing his role perfectly, acting like nothing had changed. The house was decorated lavishly with expensive champagne flowing and a catered spread that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. All paid for with my stolen inheritance. My mother's face went white when she saw me walk through the front door. "Serafina, what are you doing here? I told you this was a private family gathering." "Oh, I think we need to have a very public family conversation," I replied, pulling out my folder of evidence. The room fell silent as relatives turned to stare. This was not the dramatic entrance I had planned, but my mother's reaction told me everything I needed to know. She was terrified. But then something unexpected happened. Sarah, my trusted ally and cousin who had promised to help expose the truth, suddenly stepped forward with a concerned expression. "Serafina, honey, maybe you should sit down. You seem really agitated and everyone here is just trying to enjoy the holiday." I stared at her in shock. This was not part of the plan. Sarah was supposed to be recording everything, providing backup testimony, helping to corner my mother with questions. Instead, she was undermining me in front of the entire family. "Sarah, what are you doing?" I whispered, but she avoided my eyes. My mother seized the opportunity immediately. "I was afraid this might happen," she announced to the room, her voice dripping with false concern. "Serafina has been having some serious mental health episodes lately. She has been making wild accusations about money and creating elaborate conspiracy theories about the family." The room murmured with sympathetic understanding, and I realized with growing horror that Sarah had betrayed me. But it got worse. Much worse. "She showed me all these documents," Sarah continued, "but they looked fake to me. Like she had been spending time creating evidence for delusions that do not exist. I was worried she might do something dramatic tonight, so I thought the family should be prepared." My heart sank as I understood what had happened. Sarah had never intended to help me. She had been feeding information back to my mother the entire time. Every strategy session, every piece of evidence I had shared, every plan we had made had been reported back to the enemy. Marcus looked confused and started to speak up, but my mother cut him off. "Marcus, I know Serafina convinced you to help her, but she is very good at manipulation when she is having an episode." Sarah was wise enough to come to me with her concerns about Serafina's mental state. The betrayal was devastating, but it was about to get worse. David, Melody's fiancé, who I thought was on my side, stepped forward with a professional-looking folder. "I did some research into Serafina's claims," he announced, "and I am afraid there are some serious red flags that suggest these documents have been altered." I felt like the ground was falling out from under me. David had not been investigating my mother's fraud. He had been working to discredit my evidence. The folder he was holding contained what he claimed were expert analyses, showing that my bank statements had been digitally manipulated. "As a forensic accountant," David continued, "I can tell you that these signatures, while they look real to an untrained eye, show clear signs of digital alteration. The timestamps do not match the bank's records, and several of the document formats are inconsistent with standard banking protocols from those time periods." My father started to speak up, but I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes. When your own cousin and a professional accountant are both saying the evidence is fake, it becomes easy to believe the lies you have been told for years. But the final blow came from the most unexpected source. Mr. Patterson, my grandmother's lawyer, walked into the party. My mother had somehow contacted him and convinced him to attend. "I am afraid I need to clarify some things," he announced to the room. "There seems to be some confusion about Mrs. Rose's estate. Miss Serafina has been insisting that her grandmother left her a substantial inheritance," he continued. "But I can confirm that Mrs. Rose's will left everything to her daughter Serafina's mother, with specific instructions that Serafina was not to receive any direct inheritance due to concerns about her financial responsibility." The room erupted in sympathetic murmurs about how sad it was that I had created this elaborate fantasy about money that was never mine. I stood there surrounded by my own family, watching them all believe the lies while my supposed allies stabbed me in the back. "Serafina," my mother said with fake gentleness, "I think you need professional help. This obsession with money that was never yours is really concerning. Maybe we should call Dr. Peterson and see if he can meet with you tonight." I realized that Sarah's betrayal had been planned from the beginning. She had never been on my side. She had been tasked with getting close to me, learning my plans, and then publicly discrediting me. The recording equipment I thought she was bringing to document my mother's confession was probably being used to capture footage of my breakdown instead. But as I stood there, feeling completely alone and defeated, I noticed something interesting. Marcus had not spoken since the initial interruption. He was standing quietly in the corner, watching everything unfold with a very calculating expression. And my father, despite his obvious confusion, kept glancing at me with something that looked like concern rather than disappointment. "You know what?" I said loudly, interrupting my mother's continued speech about getting me help. "You are absolutely right. I have been obsessing over this money situation, and it has clearly affected my judgment. I apologize for disrupting your party." The room relaxed slightly, thinking I was admitting defeat, but I was actually buying time. Something about this whole setup felt wrong beyond just the betrayals. If my mother had been this prepared for my accusations, if she had managed to turn my allies against me this completely, then she had known I was coming tonight. Which meant she had been planning this counterattack for days. "I think I should probably leave and let you all enjoy your celebration." I continued moving toward the door. "But first, Melody, I want to congratulate you on your engagement. I hope you and David will be very happy together." As I reached for the door handle, I caught Marcus's eye and gave him the slightest nod toward the kitchen. If there was going to be a comeback from this devastating betrayal, it was going to have to start with figuring out who, if anyone, was actually still on my side. The evening was far from over. I slipped into the kitchen, my heart pounding from the public humiliation I had just endured. Marcus followed a few minutes later, and to my relief, so did my father. The noise from the party covered our whispered conversation. "That was a setup from the beginning," Marcus said quietly. "Sarah came to me 2 days ago asking weird questions about what evidence you had shown me. I thought she was just being thorough, but now I realize she was reporting back." My father looked devastated. "I do not understand. The documents I found in your mother's closet, the journal with all the lies written down, was all of that fake, too." "No, Dad, those were real," I whispered. "But she knew we found them. She has been preparing counter-evidence for days." But then Marcus revealed something that changed everything. "Serafina, there is something I did not tell you before. Last month, I installed a security camera system at my apartment, and the company that did it also services some local businesses. The guy who installed mine mentioned that he had recently done work at your mother's bank. He pulled out his phone and showed me a contact. His name is Jake, and he owes me a favor. If there are security cameras at the bank, and if your mother has been making regular withdrawals from your account, there would be footage. This was the break we needed, but we had to move fast. While the party continued in the living room, Marcus called Jake and explained the situation. Within 30 minutes, we had digital copies of security camera footage from the bank covering the past 6 months. The footage was devastating. It showed my mother clear as day making multiple withdrawals from my account using forged identification. But more importantly, it showed her counting large amounts of cash and then depositing portions of it into different accounts, including one that belonged to Sarah. She has been paying Sarah. I breathed, watching the footage on Marcus's laptop. This whole betrayal was bought and paid for. But the real bombshell came when we saw footage from 2 weeks ago. My mother was at the bank with Mr. Patterson, the same lawyer who had just publicly discredited me at the party. They were clearly working together, going through documents and what appeared to be coaching sessions for tonight's performance. The lawyer is in on it, my father said, his voice filled with rage. She has been paying him to lie about Grandma Rose's will. We had the evidence we needed, but we still had to deal with the room full of family members who had just witnessed my public humiliation. That is when I remembered something crucial. The real Mr. Patterson had given me his personal cell phone number during our first meeting. I called him immediately. Mr. Patterson, I am at my family's New Year's Eve party, and someone claiming to be you just told everyone that my grandmother left me nothing in her will. That is impossible, came his confused reply. I am at home with my family tonight, and your grandmother definitely left you that trust fund. Who is this person claiming to be me? The fake lawyer was still in the living room, probably planning to disappear before anyone could ask too many follow-up questions. We had to act quickly. Dad, I need you to go back out there and start asking the fake Mr. Patterson very specific questions about Grandma Rose's estate, I instructed. Ask him things like what law firm he works for when the will was signed, who witnessed it. Marcus will be recording everything. My father nodded grimly and returned to the party. Through the kitchen doorway, we could hear him engaging the imposter in conversation. Mr. Patterson, I just want to clarify a few things for my own peace of mind. What law firm are you with again? The fake lawyer's responses were vague and evasive, exactly what we expected. Meanwhile, I was on the phone with the real Mr. Patterson, who was driving to the party to expose this fraud in person. But we needed one more piece of evidence to completely destroy my mother's credibility. Marcus had an idea that was brilliant in its simplicity. Your mother's journal that your dad found, she wrote down all her lies right, including the stories she told to different people. Yes, but she probably destroyed it after realizing Dad found her hiding place. Maybe, but what if she did not? What if she just moved it? Marcus was already heading toward the stairs. I am going to search her bedroom. If that journal still exists, it is game over for her. While Marcus searched upstairs and my father continued questioning the fake lawyer, I prepared for the most important phone call of my life. I contacted the FBI agent Mr. Patterson had mentioned, Agent Rodriguez, and explained that the fraud was happening live right now in front of witnesses. We can be there in 20 minutes, Agent Rodriguez said. Keep the suspect at the location and continue documenting everything. Marcus returned with a grin on his face and a small leather journal in his hands. Found it in a new hiding spot in her bathroom. She moved it but did not destroy it. The journal contained everything detailed records of which lies she had told to which family members' payment schedules for Sarah's cooperation notes about recruiting the fake lawyer, and most damning of all entries about how to neutralize the threat if I ever discovered the theft. But the final entry, dated just 3 days ago, made my blood run cold. If the New Year's Eve plan does not work, and Serafina continues to be a problem, may need to consider permanent solutions. Insurance policy is still active. She was planning to have me killed, I whispered, showing the entry to Marcus and my father. This was never just about money. She wanted me dead. The real Mr. Patterson arrived just as Agent Rodriguez and 2 other FBI agents pulled into the driveway. The timing could not have been better. We had gathered our evidence, exposed the fake lawyer, and documented everything we needed for a federal case. As we prepared to return to the living room for the final confrontation, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop what you are doing right now, or everyone in that house will pay the price. This is your last warning." My mother had clearly planned for multiple contingencies, but she had not planned for the FBI being involved. Her threats were about to become federal charges, and her carefully constructed web of lies was about to collapse in spectacular fashion. The real New Year's Eve fireworks were about to begin. The living room fell completely silent when Agent Rodriguez walked in behind the real Mr. Patterson. My mother's face went from confident to terrified in a matter of seconds, especially when she saw the FBI credentials. "Ladies and gentlemen," Agent Rodriguez announced, "we are here to investigate a complex case of federal mail fraud, identity theft, and financial elder abuse. I need everyone to remain calm while we sort this out." The fake lawyer tried to slip toward the back door, but Agent Martinez was already there, blocking his exit. "I do not think so," she said firmly, showing her badge. "We have some questions for you about impersonating an attorney and participating in a conspiracy to commit fraud." My mother's carefully constructed facade cracked completely when Agent Rodriguez placed the bank security footage on the coffee table for everyone to see. "Ma'am, we have video evidence of you making multiple fraudulent withdrawals from your daughter's trust fund using forged identification. We also have documentation showing payments to accomplices and conspiracy to commit identity theft." The room erupted as family members finally saw the truth with their own eyes. Uncle Robert, who had been one of my mother's strongest supporters, stared at the footage in shock. "Linda, how could you do this to your own daughter?" Sarah tried to deny her involvement until Agent Martinez presented the bank records showing payments from my mother's account to hers. Miss Sarah accepting money in exchange for providing false testimony and helping to discredit a fraud victim is a federal crime. You are going to need a lawyer. But the most devastating moment came when the real Mr. Patterson read Grandma Rose's actual will aloud to the entire family. Mrs. Rose specifically wanted Serafina to have this inheritance because she believed Serafina was the most responsible and trustworthy of her grandchildren. She also included a personal note expressing concern that others in the family might try to manipulate or take advantage of Serafina's kind nature. Grandma Rose had known. She had actually protected me with specific legal language in her will, and my mother had been stealing from a legally protected trust fund designed to prevent exactly this kind of family theft. Melody broke down crying when she realized that her engagement ring, her new car, and most of her expensive belongings had been purchased with stolen money. "David, I did not know," she sobbed. "I thought Mom had gotten an inheritance or something." David's response was swift and decisive. "The engagement is off. I cannot marry into a family with this level of criminal behavior, and I cannot trust someone who did not question where expensive gifts were coming from. The journal entries were read aloud to the family, exposing not just the financial fraud, but years of deliberate character assassination. Aunt Patricia began crying when she heard how my mother had manipulated her into believing I was dangerous to be around children. "I kept my kids away from you for 3 years because of her lies," she whispered. "I am so sorry." But the most shocking revelation came when Agent Rodriguez presented the life insurance policy and the journal entries about permanent solutions. "Mrs. Linda, you are being arrested for conspiracy to commit fraud, mail fraud, identity theft, and we are investigating potential charges related to conspiracy to commit murder." As the handcuffs clicked around my mother's wrists, she tried one last manipulation. "Serafina, tell them this is all a misunderstanding. You know I love you. Everything I did was to protect the family." I looked at her calmly and said, "The only thing you protected was your own greed, and the only person who needs protection from you is everyone else in this family." Sarah and the fake lawyer were also arrested while David publicly apologized to me in front of everyone. "I was hired by your mother to discredit your evidence," he admitted. "She paid me $5,000 to create false forensic reports. I am going to testify against her and return the money." The aftermath was swift and complete. Within 6 months, my mother was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for mail fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy charges. Sarah received 2 years for her role as an accomplice. The fake lawyer, whose real name was Thomas Mitchell, was sentenced to 5 years for impersonating an attorney and fraud conspiracy. I recovered not just my original $50,000, but also penalties, interest, and damages totaling over $75,000. More importantly, I got my family relationships back. Uncle Robert, Aunt Patricia, and most of my cousins apologized and made genuine efforts to rebuild our connections. My father and I entered family therapy together to work through the years of manipulation and damage. It was not easy, but we built a stronger relationship based on truth rather than lies. He divorced my mother while she was in prison and has been genuinely committed to making amends. Melody struggled with the fallout, but eventually took responsibility for her willful blindness about where her expensive gifts were coming from. We have slowly rebuilt our sister relationship, though it will never be the same. But the most beautiful part of this story is the chosen family I built from the ashes of betrayal. Marcus and I became incredibly close through this experience. My father became the parent I always deserved. Mr. Patterson, the real one, became a trusted advisor and friend. Even some of my extended family members who had been manipulated became stronger allies than ever before. I used part of my recovered inheritance to start a support group for financial abuse victims within families. It turns out that what happened to me is more common than people realize, and there are many others who have been systematically isolated and robbed by people they trusted. The insurance policy was canceled immediately, and I made sure everyone in my family knew about the journal entries regarding permanent solutions. It was important for them to understand just how far my mother had been willing to go to protect her secrets. 2 years later, I bought my own house with money that was actually mine and hosted my first New Year's Eve party. The guest list included everyone who had supported me through the truth, plus some new friends from my support group work. We toasted not just the new year, but the triumph of justice over betrayal. My mother writes letters from prison, sometimes still trying to manipulate and control from behind bars. I do not read them anymore. Agent Rodriguez keeps me informed about her release date, which is still several years away, and we have already discussed safety precautions for when that time comes. The most satisfying moment came when I received a letter from Grandma Rose's lawyer. Not about legal matters, but sharing a note Grandma Rose had left with specific instructions to give me if her trust was ever threatened. She had written, "My dear Serafina, if you are reading this, it means someone tried to steal what I left for you. Do not let them win. You are stronger than they know, and you deserve every bit of love and security this money can provide. Fight for yourself the way I always fought for you." She had known all along that this might happen, and she had believed I would be strong enough to fight back. She was right. So here is my question for all of you watching. Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted was systematically betraying you? How did you find the strength to fight back when everyone seemed to be against you? Share your stories in the comments, because we all need to know we are not alone in these experiences. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about family justice and personal triumph. Share this video with anyone who needs to know that fighting back against family betrayal is possible, even when the odds seem impossible. Thank you for listening to my story and for supporting survivors of family financial abuse. Remember that blood does not always mean loyalty, but chosen family based on love and respect can heal even the deepest betrayals. Here is to justice, truth, and the families we choose for ourselves.